Hi, I'm James with British Customs. Today we're going to install our Retro Handlebar Kit on this 2024 T120. So by now you should have watched how to install the ABS brake line from the rear ABS unit up to here. If you haven't done that, go back, watch that video, install that kit first, and then that'll allow you to finish off with the Retro Handlebar Kit. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to run our brake line. It comes in the kit. Both of these ends are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which end you stick through here. We're going to just guide it through here where the stock one went before, and just let it hang out the other side, and we'll make our connection right here. And this right here is a 7/16 and a 5/8. If you don't have standard wrenches, 11 millimeter and I believe a 16 millimeter will fit that. One of them 16 or 17. Don't remember offhand. But if you got the standard, these are actually standard. So, okay. And we can stick that in there. I'm going to lay this in here. I'm going to run a cable tie right there to hold that in place. So I just want to talk about when you're tightening these down. They don't have to be crazy tight. You want to make them good and snug. But what's actually sealing here is this taper right there, and there's another taper inside that is sealing. Don't put any thread sealants on here. It's not the threads that are actually doing the sealing. It's all in the taper there. So we're just trying to tighten these down. Once they stop, now you just need to snug them down nice. Thread sealant is not going to help you at all. It may actually make it even worse and make it cause a leak. Because if the sealant ends up in between there, it could cause a leak or it could cause a blockage. So please don't use any of that. So now we just want to get our cable hose routed into there. We're going to put it in between this vent hose here and the other brake line. Run a cable tie underneath this little piece here. You can see there's a little bridge going across there. So we're going to run that under that. So now we're going to run our brake line through here, like that. And we can get our guide back in here. The brake line goes over that. It should sit right into this pocket here. Clip this back on. Let's stick our screw in here. Get the other one on the bottom. Using our T30. Tighten that up. So your hose should be coming out here like this. It doesn't matter whether it's under these cables, through the guide or anything. We can maneuver this once we get the bars in place and we decide the routing that we want. So now we're going to put our risers on. Before we do that, you want to make sure that this wire guide is in place. Make sure that all your wires are going through there on both sides. I'm going to put the riser on. I'm going to use one spacer on each riser. And do not use that washer that came off with the stock, because it will just make this looser. You want to have as much clamp load on this as you can, so leave the spacer out, slide it through. Get that started, and then we'll do the same on the other side. Make sure when you do the spacer, this little lip there needs to be going up into that groove there. Okay. So next, we just want to lay our bars in here so we can get the clamps on. You may want to do this now is make a center mark on here. I just measured in between the two, ran a straight line up and found my center mark there. And then that way we can center it between the two risers. When you're putting the risers on, these little marks on here, you got two little dashes. They don't mean anything but identify the size during manufacturing and for us to pack them together and stuff. But for good practice, I always like to make sure they're both aiming the same way. But it really doesn't matter, so don't stress over it. Just start our screws in. So now I just want to run a little spacer in here because just to keep these an even gap. I'll run a spacer in there. I don't know the exact measurement on this. I think it's like 80 thousandths. Use your 5mm Allen. Just snug those down. Okay. So now I'm going to get these close to where I want them. I'll go get my tape measure. I'm just going to measure in between there. And we've got 2.5 inches, so 1.25 inches. Put me at center. About there. Now using my 5mm Allen. Tighten down up here. I'm just going to make them a little snug right now because we need to move the bar around and get it to a comfortable position. So now that we got the bar snugged up in there, we can tighten these nuts on the bottom. Use our 17mm socket. Do the same on the other side. So now once that's tight, we can actually, if you just loosen up one riser. You can give that a little bit of shake and make sure that they're nice and straight with each other, and then tighten them back up. Again, we're not tightening this all the way because we want to move the bar to our comfort zone in our next step. So next, we want to put our seat on. That. So a good starting point is to set these bars so that this portion is level with the ground, and then kind of see how that feels. And they usually end up just a little bit lower than level, but for everybody it's going to be a little bit different. Getting your seating position, you know, the length of your arms and stuff is going to change that all. So get it where you're comfortable, and then we're going to tighten them down at that point. So now we're going to torque these down. Torque is 10 Newton meters. Use your 5mm Allen. And I'm just going to do it in a cross pattern here. Don't try and get to 10 Newton meters all at once. I'm going to try and keep everything nice and even. Do the same thing on the other side. So now we want to get a piece of tape on your bar here. Gonna go from the end of the bar, not the end of the cap, because we're probably gonna pop that cap out and throw some mirrors in there. So you want to go from the end of the bar. That's where we want our grip to be flush to that. And you're gonna go about 7 3/4 of an inch in. Put the tape on center on that. So next what we want to do is slide our throttle sensor on. I'm going to grab our master cylinder. I'm going to put these screws back in. Here's our T20. We just want to get them started, and then we want to slide our throttle on and then tighten these down. Get your throttle on. You want to make sure you're getting full throttle there. If you put it in the wrong slot, it's not going to work right. So make sure it's right and you're getting spring back there. Once you have that, take our T20, tighten these screws down. Now we can take our cap here. We're gonna install these screws very loosely using our 5mm Allen. Just enough to hold the cap on for now. Now what you want to do is slide this in until you're flush with the end of the bar. The plastic cap should be sticking out at that point. Okay. So I took this cap out just so I could show you what I'm talking about. We want to be flush to the end of the bar here, not to the end of the cap. I mean, unless you know for sure you're not going to be putting mirrors in there, then that'll be okay. But if you want to put bar end mirrors in here, then you don't want to be out past the end of the bar. So now I can just slightly snug that up there. I can put this back in for now, because we don't know what mirrors we're putting on just yet. So now again, we want to get on the bike and we want to make this to where it's comfortable, and then we're going to tighten it down, and it's going to leave a little mark right where we have to drill it to keep this thing lined up. Want to keep it snug enough that this thing is not moving around, but not so tight that you already make a mark into your tape. All right, so now you want to get comfortable on the bike, get in your riding position, and then you just want to see that you're comfortable with your grip. You don't want to weigh down like that, and you don't want it too high. You put a lot of stress on your wrist like that. You just want to have a nice natural straight shot like that. Make sure you're staying where you're supposed to be. Right there, feels really comfortable. So now I'm going to tighten this down using my 5mm Allen. You don't want to crank this down to where you end up breaking the clamp. Until we drill that out, this can't be really tightened down too tight, but you want to tighten it down enough that we leave a mark in the tape. Okay, that should do it. So it's just a little tip here, just in case you pull this off and you're not happy with the mark that it made, that you really can't see it or something like that. Now that you know that this is at the angle you like, you're just going to make a mark right where the clamp is there, and then make a line like that. So now if we're not happy with that, you could always just stick another little piece of tape in its spot, and we can put this right to it and tighten it down without moving this around at all. All right, so now with our 5mm Allen, I'm gonna loosen this clamp up. And we can slide it back. You can see our mark there. So now that we're happy with that mark there, we can take this completely off so it's out of the way while we're drilling. And you actually can pull this out without having to unscrew that sensor. So that's good. I'm just gonna let that hang down there. So now what we want to do is put a center punch mark right in the center of that hole there. I recommend not using a really skinny center punch if you're using an automatic one like this, because the bar is really hard and they tend to slide off. And if you're supporting the bar like this, it slides off and stabs you in the hand. Use a wider, more blunt one on the heavy duty style. Works much better. You just have to do it 2 or 3 times. Now we got a nice mark there. So if you feel really confident with a drill, and you've done stuff like this before, then you can drill that freehand if you like. Another way that we like to use is this tool from LSL. And it's got a drill guide bushing in here. And that's a number 9 drill bit that fits in there. And we just line it up with that center punch mark, tighten it down, and drill away. Now, if you're drilling this freehand, the hole you want to make is going to be a 1/4 inch finished. I suggest you use a much smaller bit to start with and move up to a 1/4 inch. With this one, we can go right from a number 9 and then take it off and finish it off with a 1/4 inch drill. So I recommend using some good cutting lube on your drill bit, make it last longer. So now, using our 5mm, we can take this off. Get our 1/4 inch bit, put a little lube on. Got a nice hole. Now I can pull the tape off. So now we can start this on there. We get our grip into place. Again, make sure it's in the right slot so you get full throttle. Now we hit our hole, we're locked in place there. So now we can put our cap on over here. Grab our 5mm Allen. So it's important you get this hole right the first time because you have a little bit to move this around, but not much. You know, once it's all done, you can move the bars a little bit, move this a little bit, but you really want to get that hole as spot on as you can. So now we can tighten this clamp down, 12 Newton meters. So now we're ready to put our switch housing cover on. There were 2 screws. The long one goes on top. It's a T20 Torx driver. Don't tighten it up yet until you get the bottom one in. Put the short one in on the bottom. Again with our T20 Torx. Tighten that up. Now we can tighten the top. Now we can put our brake light switch on. You want to make sure these 2 little tips there, there's 2 little holes that they need to go into. And just so you don't break this little tip there, because that's the actual switch mechanism, you want to just squeeze your lever a little bit as you're putting it up there. And then when you release the lever, it'll hold it in place. You can get a plastic holder and the screw. Start that screw up there. With our T20 Torx bit, tighten that up. So now we're ready to connect our brake line. So as you're pulling this out, just pull it out a little easy because there might be a little pressure from squeezing the handle. Have a rag ready in case there's any drips coming out of there. Now you can remove the rubber. I'm going to put a new washer onto our banjo bolt. I'm going to put the banjo on. We want the banjo so that this piece is facing inward, that way. Then I'm going to put another washer on. We'll start that in. Now this has a piece here to stop so that this can't go any further, but we don't want to go that far. To keep things comfortable, we want to kind of try and end up at an angle just like that. So we're going to put this on now so we can keep checking that angle as we tighten it up. Just put this on loose by hand. It should sit nice and comfortable like that. We get our 14mm. Snug that down. Okay, so now we can just hold this here and we're going to tighten this to 25 Newton meters. If it starts to move, you might have to just loosen it back up a little bit. Hold it back up, tighten. Okay. So now we can tighten this up Remember, we don't want any kind of thread sealant, no Teflon tape, anything like that. This goes together dry. The threads do not do the sealing on this. It's all in the tapered shape there. Use your 7/16 wrench to tighten that up. 11mm if you don't have standard tools. Make good and tight, not cranking it. You could always tighten it up a little bit later on. If you see anything leaking a little bit, you can just snug it up till it stops leaking. So now we can straighten out all our wires here. You want to make sure everything's in place. If you need to, if you accidentally put this one up in here, you can always just take this clamp down, remove the wire guide, remove whatever wire you have to. If you didn't put one in, same thing. Pull it down, put it in, and you'll be fine. Get that all nice and neat. To take some of the slack out, you can now pull these back this way. And from there, I'm just going to put our rubber strap back on. Like that. So now we want to get our grip on this side. I like to use air to just blow this on. You can use like Windex or something just to lube it up, slide it on, it'll dry up. Right there, we can get it right to the very end of the handlebar. So just like when we took it off, we're going to put it right back on. Slide that through there. Make sure these are aligned. Get that in there. So now we can put our clutch perch back on. Use our 5mm Allen. Get these clamp screws on. And we're not looking to fully torque this down just yet, because we want to sit on the bike and get this level with the other one so that everything's comfortable, and then we'll final torque it at that point. Now we can put the switch housing on, get the screws in there. Both screws are the same length on this side. These are T20 Torx. So we have this little bit of slop up here, so we want to take that out. Pull that there. Tighten that down. And that's pretty tight. You got to have a touch of free play there, but you don't want too much. So we'll fine tune it once we ride the bike, but for right now, that's good. So now I'm going to take off our lid using our Phillips head screwdriver. All right, so now we're going to hook up our vacuum bleeder. And one thing you always want to do is you want to make sure that your hose is aiming upwards so that it fills with fluid, and then any air goes up and out and can't get ever introduced back into the system. Before I loosen this up, I want to hook up the vacuum and have that ready to go so that it starts sucking right away. Turn that on, and with our 11mm wrench, we will loosen the bleeder valve. Now we want to fill this with fluid from an unopened bottle. Always use a brand new bottle of .4 fluid. Be careful not to get the fluid on anything. So now you can see I got solid fluid there and you got air bubbles coming up. So those air bubbles can't go back down now. That's why I always make sure the hose is going up. And I can give a little squeeze of the lever. Push some more air bubbles out. And then when I let go of the lever, they won't go back in. Okay, so now I can tighten this up. I'm gonna go to the other side and do the same thing. We may have to come back to this side and do it again. Always turn that on before you disconnect so that you don't let a bunch of fluid fly out of it. So again, come through here, make sure our hose is going up. And turn it on. Loosen. Make sure this doesn't go empty, because then you'll have to start all over again. Okay, I can squeeze the lever, the air bubbles out. While I'm holding the lever, I'm going to tighten this up. So what I'm talking about when I say don't let this go empty is those two holes right there. When we squeeze the lever, we're opening the one hole. Well, before that, it's open and it's allowing fluid to go in there. And then as we squeeze that, it pushes the fluid down there. If you let it go empty, you're going to put air into that hole, and now we'll be pushing air into our line, and we'll have to start all over again. So we're trying to keep this always filled with fluid and get all the air out of the system. So what I want to do now is I'm going to pump the brake. I'm hoping to get some resistance. I probably won't get it just yet. We're going to have to go over to the other side and do this. But I want to see if there's any air bubbles in here. So now I can crack that open. I got solid fluid coming up with no air bubbles. So that's a good sign. So we'll check out the other side. So again, we're going to come in so that our hose stays upward. Now this is a job that if you have somebody else to help you out, it's always best off, because you could have one person making sure that you don't go empty at the reservoir and they keep it full. If you've been doing it long enough, you've learned how to do it yourself, but it's still easier with somebody else. So now I'm going to pump. I am starting to feel a little more resistance at the brake lever, so that's good. Tighten that up. I'm going to look around and make sure we don't have any leaks. If you're having a problem building pressure, you want to make sure that we don't have any brake fluid coming out from the ABS unit. So far, it's nice and dry. It'll usually leak out pretty quick because it's right at the end there. We want to check our junction block up here. It's all nice and dry. So that's good. Check our fitting up here. All that is nice and dry, except for what I spilled out of the cap there. This is the one area that's a little more forgiving if you get brake fluid on it. But once we're done with this, I will definitely run it down with some cold water and help neutralize the brake fluid. But brake parts tend to be pretty good at handling the .4. This little point right there is the level that it should be at, but that's when this is at a level position. So right now it's not. We need to get it on the floor, turn the bars until we can make it totally level, so that this part of the surface is level with the ground. Then we can fill to that point and we know we're totally full. Just put that on. Put that on. Now the other thing you need to know is with an ABS system, you need to have this hooked up to a computer that the dealership has a program for that opens the valves on the ABS unit, and that'll finish off the bleeding to make sure there's no air left in the ABS unit or in the line anywhere. Right now you're just bypassing it, so you need to be able to open up those valves, go through it, and make it all solid. So we advise you do not ride this bike, whether you feel like you have good brake or not, until you get it to the dealer to get that done. The other option is you can purchase through Tune ECU. I believe they have a program. I don't know that it works on every model, but so far every model I've used it on, that you can bleed the ABS brakes, and it just opens up that valve so you can run the fluid through it and then closes the valve. Okay, so now that we've checked for all the leaks, we know we don't have any brake fluid leaking, we can put our gas tank slate feet back on here. You want to hold your gas line, make sure it stays on this side of the tank. You don't want to get your tank on and find out that it was tucked underneath it. You got these two slots inside the gas tank. They need to go over the two rubber mounts there before you push it all the way up. Might get some gas spilling out of that. Keep your fingers up here to just kind of guide it in, because if it's not into its slot and you're pushing too hard, it's going to slam up into your frame or your triple clamp there. Once it's in, you can put that down. You can lift up the tank, get your block, put it under there to hold it up. We get our plugs from here. Put that in. Put that in. We just want to get them back onto their holders here. Okay, now we can put our fuel line back on. You want to take that lock there, make sure it's pulled all the way back. Push down till it clicks, and then make sure you lock that back. Now we just got to hook up the vent line. So now we just need to put our vent hose back on the tank here. Slides on, and then put it back into this clip here. Bend that up. So now we can pull our block out. Come down. Slide our through bolt. To our 8mm socket and our 10mm wrench. Put our seat on. So now you just want to sit on the bike and slowly turn your bars full right. Make sure you have no contact there. Full left, no contact. Shouldn't be a problem with these bars, but if you have something set up a little different, you just want to make sure before you lock it all down. So the last thing we need to tighten now is just this. I want to make sure everything's the same as the right side. It feels that way. So now I'm going to tighten it down. 12 Newton meters with our 5mm Allen. So what you want to do once you get the bike off the lift is get this set so that it's as level as you can be. And right there is our full mark. And right now you can see we're only about halfway up the full mark. So I'm going to pour more fluid in there. Bring us right up to the full mark there, just a hair below it. And that looks good. We'll wipe that off and we'll get the cap back on. So now we're going to connect the battery negative. If by chance you had disconnected your battery positive, then you want to make sure you connect that first and then connect your battery negative. Always connect the positive first and the negative second. When you're taking it off, always disconnect your negative first and your positive second. There's a Phillips head screwdriver, number 3, or a 10mm socket. And now we can put our seat on. So that's it for the Retro Bar Kit install on a 2024 T120. Make any minor adjustments you need to make now. Whether it be the bar just needs to be turned a little bit and you have a little bit of movement here, so go for that. Whatever you do, don't ride it until you get it to the dealer so you can finish out the ABS bleed system. So they open the valves and let the fluid flow through the ABS unit. And other than that, thanks for watching.